Yeah, they always want to get to where we're going, but it's like if you ignore, that audience segmentation, you're going to have this really flat message.
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hassman, and joining me today is a brand new rock star. He is the founder and CEO of FPW Media. They specialize in brand, films, and merchandise, and so I am really excited to dive into this conversation with Owen Garrity. Thanks for joining me, man.
Kirby, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I love just trying to dive right in. So, I think when you're talking about entrepreneurs, you're talking about marketers, all this sort of thing, everybody just wants to stand out. And it's tough, right? Because the media we consume is more fractured now than ever before. So what do we do about it? How can we create a brand story that better connects with our audience?
Yeah, I think the last statistic I saw was that the average consumer sees about 5,000 ads a day. So when you say fractured, you mean fractured, right? Everybody has, one of these in their pockets. They're on it scrolling constantly. And so fractured is more fractured by the moment. And what we do with clients when we're talking about this is we really focus on the story, right? So you have all of these different potential touch points that your audience is going to be consuming media on. But what we need to do is story first. So having a story that is going to add value to our potential customer, that's going to resonate with them, at the end of the day is going to get them to have an emotional reaction of some kind, right? Because without that, we're just more of the noise, and the ROI is going to suffer. We're not going to see the results we want. And so we always are story first, and then we look at, okay, across all of those fractured touch points that we have available to us, how do we tell that story in an evolutionary way, right? So that it is evolving at each touch point. So it's keeping somebody interested, right? Maybe that starts with an emailed offer to them about a specific product that's coming here in the future. Then when they're on a news platform, they're seeing an ad for that same product. Then when they go to the landing page, they watch a video about the product. And then they're encouraged to sign up for future updates. And then we can get them in our drip system, for instance. So it's really just about making sure that we have a really killer story that resonates, and that then we tailor that to each of those touch points so that it feels like a wider story that somebody is consuming.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I think, and I love that you start with that story. That totally resonates with me. But how do we ensure that we're reaching the right audience with the content? You know what I mean? Obviously, again, with that fractured, those fractured platforms, how do we make sure we're hitting the right audience?
That's incredibly important, right? So one of the things we find with a lot of clients is they don't understand who their ICP or ideal customer profile is. So if we're working with a client, or if you're a business owner that's listening to this, we need to start there with that knowledge, right? There's all sorts of ways to get that, whether that be customer surveys, various other data analytics. We can create that profile of who an ideal customer is, right? What does that person do? Maybe she lives in a suburban area. She has 2 kids, and she is middle income, right? Let's say that's our ideal customer profile. Well, then we can look at people that fall into that profile shop at these type of places. They are concerned about these type of things, right? They want to live this type of lifestyle. And then we can make sure that our story and our messaging is reflective of who that ideal customer profile is, right? Going back to our example of this woman in this example, we wouldn't want to have really male-centric, macho advertising, for instance, or really have anything like that even touch this potential customer, because it's going to put them off from the product. Right. So it all goes back to having really good data to start with. And if you don't have it, developing that really good data so that we get to the point of creating a story, we're creating a story that actually resonates with the potential customer.
Yeah, I'm with you, Owen. And it's funny because I think a lot of people are like, yeah. I know. But they don't actually go through the exercise of identifying it. And when you walk through them face to face with it, sometimes you're like, yeah, but we might be going on different social media platforms. We might be telling a completely different story because a 65-year-old woman doesn't care about the same things that a 19-year-old guy at a frat party does. It's a completely different story to tell. And so I think your point is super well taken, because people like they want to jump ahead, you know?
Yeah, they always want to get to where we're going, but it's like if you ignore, that audience segmentation, you're going to have this really flat message.
Yeah. Yeah, totally with you. So what are you talk about multi-touch marketing campaigns. If you don't mind, and I'm going a little bit off script here, but talk to me about what you mean by multi-touch marketing campaigns, and what are some ideal ways of tracking ROI on a campaign like that?
Yeah. So I think that people get so focused on just the realm of digital, right?
Yeah.
Where, oh, I'm just thinking about marketing as it pertains to my PPC or
Mm-hmm.
my social media advertising. And I'm completely ignoring every other touch point that I have as a brand. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about this, we talk about 360 holistic, which is everything from the shirt that you're wearing. That's a
Mm-hmm.
piece of marketing, right? That's a billboard that you're wearing,
100%.
all the way through to the, let's say it's a product company, the thank you for ordering email that you get, and everything in between that, right? So both in the physical, digital, online spaces, we want to make sure that the messaging, the logos, the brand representation that we're presenting to potential customers or clients is consistent and evolving, right? That we are providing value at every single one of those touch points, right? If we're doing a sponsored event at a park, right, for a new outdoor dog toy, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
right? We want to make sure that the giveaways that we're handing out are of the same level of quality as the product itself. Giving somebody a hat is a great tool, but if that hat falls apart, they're going to have a negative interpretation of the brand. And we've
Yeah.
actually done brand damage, not created brand value. And that's where we see people, again, like you said, skip to the end, right? I just want to run a PPC campaign and see my ROAS at 5x. Okay, that's great. We can do that. But what if we can get to 7x because we're going to pay attention to everything else that happens in the lead up to somebody being shown that ad? And
Mm-hmm.
so the second part of the question you asked is, how do we measure that across all those touch points? Well, we look at brand lift, right? So if there's a period of time that we have as a comparison, how many website visits were we getting during that time? How much time on site were we getting? How many click-through conversions were we getting if it's a type of product that you can actually measure click-through conversions? But there's all sorts of other metrics we can
Sure.
design, right? And that we're using that reference period to quantify a lot of these things that are really high funnel, high level, but still have that low funnel impact. And so we're looking at overall brand lift. Sometimes with clients, we do top of mind brand awareness studies. So we're actually measuring, okay, last year, people generally speaking knew us in the marketplace at X level. But then through all of these different tactics we're deploying, now we've gotten a 10% bump on that, which will equate to a 2% lift in sales or whatever it may be.
Yeah, this is great. I'm so glad you went into some of this, Owen, because this is something I preach a lot about, going across all the platforms and doing, making sure that if you're going to do branded merch, that it matches, you're putting it on something that matches the brand quality. And so I love that. And the brand lift concept is super interesting. Cool. All right. Final question for you, man. This has been great. AI is the buzzword in all of business today. It's like, if you want investors, you have to have an AI component. But should we be leaning into AI in the creation of campaigns? And so how is that affecting marketing?
You saved the good question for last. So we are, in our view, neither pro AI nor anti AI.
Okay.
We think that AI is a tool like anything else,
Yeah.
and it provides a lot of value if it's used in the right way. So what we see so far in the early data, which I say early data because it's still very much evolving,
Oh,
is
yeah.
that by and large, customers hate things that they do not view as authentic.
Mm.
So that translates to there is a certain level of negative perception on the consumer side of AI, right? And specifically where we see that rubber meet road is these brands, even some of these really high profile brands who have had huge missteps where they post an AI generated graphic to their social media feed that obviously wasn't human verified. and it's totally wrong. It's wacky. It's weird, and it creates, anti-brand value essentially. And so what we see is people should be using AI as a research tool. They should
Yeah.
be using it to help quantify large sets of data. It's really good, and generative AI is really good at giving us some insight into maybe who that ideal customer profile is, for instance, right? You could take the data of everything you know about a customer for the last, 10 years, and you can feed that huge data set in and get something that's really palatable out that would otherwise be cost prohibitive to do. But should you have AI generated images throughout your social media feed? No, you shouldn't, and because it comes across as inauthentic. And right now, humans can still tell the difference by and large. And so until that gap is closed, until it's producing something that the data shows us is wholly authentic in people's minds, it's not going to be a one-for-one replacement for that really skilled creative.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I love using AI to ideate, to like come up with ideas for stuff and then curate it myself. Even to the point with creative, we went through this process the other day where a new company came to us and said, "Want a logo?" We went and generated a bunch of just garbage AI images, but there was like one or two that I was like, okay, I'm not going to give this to the client, but it's something we can ideate off of. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Well, this has been fun, Owen. I really appreciate this. I've enjoyed this conversation. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, great place to connect with me is any of my personal social handles. I'm online at Owen Garrity, just on all the major platforms, or owengarrity.com. And then my company's website is fpwmedia.com. Same thing for all the major social handles.
That's awesome, man. Well, this was fun. We'll have to do it again sometime, okay?
Thanks, Herbie. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time. And we